I'm really excited to welcome up Katie Murphy. Katie Murphy works with Groundwork Rhode Island, and they are a community-based environmental justice organization that is working to help make urban areas in Rhode Island more resilient and safer. And the thing that I really like about them is that they're really working. They're like living out this vision that we're already trying to create with the Green New Deal. They've got programs that is like what is needed in the Green New Deal. They've got like youth and adult programs for environmental jobs. They've got a community garden and tools that people in the community can borrow. So I'm going to pass it on over.
Thanks so much. Hi everybody, my name is Katie. I was just sitting here listening to us sing that Leonard Cohen song, and I was thinking about how alone I felt the day after the 2016 election when Leonard Cohen died. Right after one of the darkest days that I think I had ever experienced in my life. I got here to what I'm doing now in Rhode Island and to this moment right now on stage here because from the moment I sort of woke up to things when I was a little kid, have felt so much grief for where we are. Just like the fact that we humans are just not doing a good job at being in this world. We're really, really screwing up. And I think that if we think about what it means to be a person, what it means to live a good life, we think about our memories of sharing the natural world with each other, of sharing the sort of daily activities of living and of finding beauty in those daily activities. And there's so much in our daily lives now that stops us from doing that all the time. The world we live in is structured so that we don't have time for that. We don't have access to it. We have to pay for that. The kind of things that are called social reproduction. That's kind of a complicated word, but what that really means is our ability to do the basic things that people need to survive and to be happy and healthy. Things like growing our own food, taking care of our parents who are sick, taking care of young children, all these things that are like, if you look at humans as a species, like what do humans need to do to survive? All those things are things that have a price on them in capitalism, which is really, really freaking crazy. The fact that we don't all have access to that. This is the kind of thing that you have to pay somebody else to do because the system says that we all have to be working as much as possible, and that if we were to take time to have a garden, to grow our own food, to make a delicious meal, to make a meal that maybe our sisters and our mothers and our grandparents have been making for generations, to connect with a meal that connects us to our heritage, that is a waste of our time. And that's crazy. And that's the sort of thing that you have to pay for. Rich people can do that in our culture, but not everyone can. And not everyone has access to the ability to just make a life. So when I moved to Rhode Island, I was really interested in getting a job in a transition, some kind of transition area where we can look at, we have to shift everything we do hugely and like in an unprecedented way. And how do we find a way to do that wherever we are? So I found Groundwork, and Groundwork is a really awesome organization. Our motto is changing places, changing lives, which I think is really cool. It's about changing the environment that surrounds us, all the things that we see and that affect the way we live, the air quality that we breathe, the water we drink, the ways that we can interact with our children and with our families in green space or lack thereof, and things that are a little bit more extreme, like what happens when there's a huge flood and our house gets ruined and we can't afford to pay for it, or what happens when there's a 110-degree day and you have asthma and you're overweight or you have diabetes, and all of that stuff is really impacted by the fact that it's really hot outside. And so Groundwork does a lot of really awesome programs that empower the people in the city to be able to change that for themselves. How do we make jobs in that transition? Which is really what the Green New Deal is all about. projects that we're working on right now is we actually have a high school employment program. And we have about 20 kids who are working in Pawtucket and Central Falls, high school kids, who are looking at tree cover and doing a full study of tree cover in all different areas in Rhode Island, in differential tree cover and how that correlates with income, how that correlates with race, how that correlates with access to healthcare, how that correlates with healthcare outcomes. And one of the things they found was that on one day in 2018, it was 92 degrees on Blackstone Boulevard, which is one of the most wealthy neighborhoods in Providence. There's a lot of trees there. It's very cool, it's very shady, and on that same day that it was 92 degrees there, it was 102 degrees in Central Falls, which is like a mile and a half away from there. And Central Falls has very, very little tree cover. It has generally very low income. It's majority non-white, low access to healthcare. And on that day that it was 102 degrees in Central Falls, there was a huge number of visits to the emergency room because of heat-related illness. Because of people who had asthma and diabetes, people who are overweight, people who that 10 degrees difference made the difference between a regular hot day and a healthcare emergency. And that's huge. And that's happening all the time now. That's not a once in 10 years event. That's happening every single day this summer. And that's going to continue to happen more and more every single summer. So something really concrete we can do is we can plant trees in our city. We can advocate for that, and also we can figure out how to pay people to do that, which is really, really, really important. So one of the things we're working on at Groundwork is trying to create programs and support other programs in Providence that are paying people to do work like that. So we have an adult job training program where we have about 2 cohorts a year, give or take, of about 20 adults, usually people who have barriers to employment, either people who are underemployed or people who have a conviction record, anybody who's having trouble getting a job. And we do like a month-long training with them, and we do all kinds of certifications and things that are related to green jobs. And then we help place them in green jobs. And a couple of graduates of our adult job training program actually work for us. We have a fee-for-service landscaping and environmental, like stormwater and environmental management jobs. So we go around the city and we plant rain gardens, and we depave, and we plant community gardens. And the people who do that graduated from our job training program. And we have 5 guys right now who are, a lot of them have been with our program. Ricky's been there for like 10 years. Different people cycle through. People we help place them in other jobs so it can sort of work as a bridge program. And I've done a lot of work with Groundwork. I particularly work on the compost side of things, which is like really, really, really exciting. Compost is a huge sector of the things that we need to change in order to get to zero greenhouse emissions. Not only that, compost actually helps get us to negative greenhouse emissions because it's a drawdown. It's a drawdown component. So when you spread compost on the ground, you actually are able to draw down more greenhouse gases into the soil, which is really, really awesome. And in addition, compost actually makes agriculture in the city possible. In a city like this, that has been contaminated with lead from so many different, we had like a huge history of manufacturing in Providence. And a lot of the soil in Providence is unusable for agriculture. So compost is really necessary because a lot of that soil has to be capped if you want to grow food here, which is expensive and complicated and takes time. And a lot of people don't know that you have to do that. So the hard thing is when people come to us and they say, I want to have a garden in my backyard, I want to grow my own food, I want to be food sovereign, I want to be able to grow what I want and eat what I want and control that. We have to tell them, well, wait, first of all, you can't just plant that in the ground because you're going to get sick. Your kids are going to get sick. There's actually a lot of things that have to be done to give you that chance. So compost is a big part of making that more accessible to people. So what we're doing is we're trying to divert compost from the landfill. We have a pickup service where we pick up compost from people and we charge a sliding scale fee. So it's affordable to participate in the program, but it still can come back and actually subsidize the end product. A cheap compost additive for agriculture that can then be used in the city. So we're working on that, and that's going to have a direct effect on people being able to grow food in the city. Lead management projects being cheaper and more accessible to more people. Compost can do a whole lot of other things too. It's really good at stormwater management. So in waterfalls, when a lot of rain falls, what ends up happening is it goes into the storm drains and it backs up the sewers, and then those sewers end up overflowing into Narragansett Bay, which creates algae blooms, it kills fish, it decimates our fisheries, it decimates the bay as an ecosystem. So being able to stop that stormwater where we can and hold it in the soil is huge, and compost holds a lot more water than wood chips or dirt or concrete for that matter. So compost can do a lot in that way. So I think compost is a really awesome sort of industry for the Green New Deal. It's something that can create a lot of jobs. One thing we're really looking at here in Providence is trying to keep that compost processing in the city, which is not something that's happening anywhere else. There's a lot of cities that are sort of moving towards curbside collection, cities that are doing it already, like San Francisco. But what they all do is they collect that compost by truck, and they truck it all the way out of the city. People pay for it in their taxes, even if they're not paying a direct fee for it, just like they pay for the trash. And then it gets taken away. It's like they're sapping this resource out of the community. And that's so important. Basically, they're taking the ability to grow food out of these communities. We're already taking it away, but compost pickup that takes stuff out of the city really sort of continues that trend. So what we're trying to do is process compost in every neighborhood in Providence. And then keep that there. Keep those jobs there. Keep the finished product, this valuable product, in the neighborhood to be used by the people in the neighborhood. Or if it's sold, that money will go back to the people in the neighborhood. And that's creating jobs because everybody creates waste. That's one thing that everybody has. And so how do we just keep that with all the people that are creating it? So I think that's really, really important. And that's something I'm working on. And my vision for the Green New Deal is one in which all of us get to have this means of social reproduction returned to us so that we can grow our food, take care of ourselves, have a normal human life, and have dignity in that, and have sovereignty over that. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie, so much for that. Yeah, I think as the climate crisis is getting worse and worse, it's really good to remember that we do have the solutions and we have the Green New Deal. Light is returning, even though this is the darkest hour, no one can hold back the dawn. Light is returning, even though this is the darkest hour, no one can hold back the dawn. Light is returning, even though this is the darkest hour, no one can hold back the dawn. Light is returning, even though this is the darkest hour, no one can hold back the dawn.